A t-shirt disappeared from the internet in under an hour, and nobody can agree on why. Some people are calling it the strangest sellout in sportswear history. Some people are calling it a scandal. And almost every single person who bought it will tell you, without hesitation, that the shirt is not even good. So why did thousands of people fight over a plain black cotton tee at 2 in the morning, refreshing a product page like their life depended on it? Why did a celebrity gossip outlet that has never once covered tennis merchandise suddenly decide this story mattered? And why, 3 weeks before this shirt even existed, was a stadium in Toronto making so much noise that a food vendor changed his entire menu because of one 21-year-old walking onto a tennis court? Stay with me, because to understand the shirt, you first have to understand the storm that made it possible. And that storm did not start with marketing. It started with a girl nobody was supposed to be talking about yet. Rewind 3 weeks. A rain delay in Washington, D.C. A final nobody outside hardcore tennis circles was watching closely, because the player on the other side of the net was the 4th-ranked woman on the planet, and the player trying to beat her was ranked so far outside the spotlight that most casual fans couldn't have picked her out of a lineup. Her name is Alex, and by the time that match ended, tennis would never quite talk about her the same way again. She lost the first set, 6-4. Not a disaster, but not a good sign either. Not against someone that dangerous. Here is where most stories like this one fall apart. The underdog fights hard, keeps it close, loses with dignity, and everyone moves on by dinner. That is not what happened. Alex did not just claw her way back into the match. She erased her opponent. 6-4 in the second set her way. Then 6-love in the third. 0 games against the world number 4. A bagel, in tennis language, delivered on the biggest stage of the underdog's career, and delivered with a calm that made grown commentators pause mid-sentence. But rewind even further, because the final wasn't the hard part. Getting there was... Along the way to that trophy, Alex had to go through an Olympic gold medalist. She beat her. She had to go through the defending champion of an entirely different major tournament. She beat her too. She had to face a former world number 1 who has spent years terrorizing lesser players on tour, gone in straight sets. And in the semifinal, she had to face one of the most decorated names in modern tennis, a 4-time Grand Slam champion who has broken the will of far more experienced opponents than a 21-year-old with nothing to lose. Alex beat her as well. 4 wins, each one against a legitimate threat, capped off by a comeback against the 4th best player alive. That is not luck. That is not a favorable draw. That is a demolition. And when the trophy finally landed in her hands, she said something in that press conference that nobody expected. She said she had already received so many messages from home, from friends scattered across the globe, that she felt like she had already won before the match even started. Whatever happened after that, she said, it would already have been a victory. Then she went out and delivered a bagel to the number 4 player in the world. There's poise, and then there's whatever that was. Because here is the detail that turns this from a great tennis story into something much bigger. Alex is Filipino, and in that moment, on that court, she became the first player from the Philippines to ever win a WTA Tour singles title. Not a small regional event. A real title on tour against real killers. And somewhere on the other side of the planet, an entire country exhaled at the exact same second. If you think that's where the story peaks, you have not seen what happened next. Because winning the trophy was only the beginning of what this moment would unleash. 1 week later, Alex touched down in Toronto for the next tournament on the calendar, and something had already shifted before she even hit a ball. Tournament staff who had seen her play months earlier at a different event, back when she lost in the first round, remembered something strange even then. The crowd noise for a first-round loser had been louder than crowds usually get for tournament favorites. That was the warning sign nobody paid attention to. This time they paid attention. The ticketing department, run in part by a Filipino staffer who understood exactly what was coming, had already been fielding calls for days. Members of the Filipino community across the city wanted to know one thing and one thing only. When is she playing and how do I get in? When organizers finally slotted her into a night session on the main stadium court, the tickets sold out in 30 minutes. Not the day. 30 minutes. Volunteers who had been handed free tickets for that exact session were quietly trading them away because paying fans wanted those seats too badly to let freebies sit there unused. And then the night arrived. 10,000 people, Philippine flags waving in every direction you looked, homemade signs, a grown man in a full blue dinosaur costume, wrapped in the Philippine flag, dancing in the aisle every time she won a point. A chant, 4 syllables and 2 claps, so loud it drowned out the stadium's own announcer when she walked onto the court. A concession stand changed its menu that week, swapping out a generic rice bowl for chicken adobo, a dish straight out of Filipino kitchens, just because of who was playing that night. This was not a tennis crowd anymore. This was a diaspora finding each other in one building at one time around one name. Even the sport's biggest young American star stood up in a press conference afterward and said, in essence, that what Alex was doing bridged a gap between a country and a sport that had never had this kind of representation before. A tennis legend who partnered with her in doubles that same week called her a global star, and more than that, an incredible person. So now picture the position Nike was in. A brand new global phenomenon, exploding in real time, no signature shoe deal yet, no logo built for her, but a name suddenly worth more than most marketing departments could have projected 6 months earlier. And this is exactly where the story gets complicated, because Nike had already shown once before that they knew exactly how to honor this. Months earlier, in a single flagship store in Manila, a very different product had quietly sold out. A customizable shirt built around the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines. A flower that in local culture symbolizes purity, devotion, and strength. It was designed by a Filipino artist who described the piece as a symbol of discipline and growth, something meant to inspire the next generation to bloom in their own time. Alex herself had worn a small sampaguita hair tie during her Wimbledon debut, a tiny detail that fans instantly turned into a viral moment. A major fashion magazine put her on a cover wearing that same floral collection, and her own father, watching from behind the photographer, noticed something simple and true. "She's smiling," he said. "You know she likes what she's wearing." That collection sold out too, but for a different reason. Demand simply outran supply at a single small store. The design itself, though, earned universal praise. It felt intentional. It felt like someone had actually sat down and thought about what this particular athlete meant to this particular country, and then translated that meaning into fabric. So, when the global version finally dropped, 3 weeks after that WTA title, 3 weeks after 10,000 people turned a tennis match into a national gathering, fans were expecting something with that same soul. What they got instead was a plain black cotton shirt. $42. A vague floral pattern rendered in dark silver ink. A small swoosh. Her name pressed across the back between the flowers and another swoosh underneath. No national colors, no flag. No trace of the sampaguita motif that already existed and had already proven, in Manila, that it worked. One fan online compared it to something you'd win in a raffle at a high school foundation day event. Another called it a relic from an entirely different decade of fashion. Someone else summed up the entire internet reaction in 4 words. Graphic design is my passion. And here is where the story should have ended. The way these stories usually do. A brand misreads a cultural moment, fans mock the product, the item sits on the shelf as a punchline, everybody moves on. Except that is not what happened. Because in the same breath that fans were calling this shirt lazy, they were also buying every single one of them. Medium sold out first, then small, then large. Within hours, only scattered extra-large sizes remained anywhere online, and by the next morning, even those were gone. When Nike briefly restocked a handful of units, those vanished too, sometimes within minutes. Fans started trading tips in comment sections on how to catch a restock the moment somebody else's order got canceled. The exact same trick some of them had used months earlier to snag another sold-out item tied to a completely different tennis star. People were setting alarms. People were refreshing product pages at work. People who had just spent an entire comment calling the design an embarrassment were, 20 minutes later, celebrating that they'd managed to get one in a medium. Does that sound like contradiction to you? It isn't. Watch closely, because this next part is the actual heart of the story, and it's the part almost nobody talking about this online seems to notice. When a major sports outlet laid out the new tennis merchandise lineup ahead of the US Open, Alex's shirt was sitting right. Alex's shirt was sitting right there next to gear for the men's world number one, for one of the sport's most recognizable young stars, and for a reigning Grand Slam champion on the women's side. Each of those players got something visually distinct. Jersey-inspired cuts, signature branding, action photography splashed across the fabric. Alex got a black tee with generic leaves and no signature logo, because Nike, by their own quiet admission, simply had not built one for her yet. Ranked 20th in the world, one title to her name, no Grand Slam final appearance yet, and that ranking, cold and mechanical, is exactly how a massive corporation decides how much creative investment a person deserves. But nobody in that stadium in Toronto was thinking about her ranking. Nobody waiting outside that Manila store for the Sampaguita collection was thinking about her ranking. The market, the real market, the one made of actual human beings who show up at midnight and stay past their bedtime for a third-round loss, does not run on rankings. It runs on something Nike's own spreadsheet cannot fully capture yet, and that gap, between what the numbers say and what the streets are actually screaming, is exactly the crack this shirt fell into. One fan online put it in a single devastating sentence. Imagine the money Nike could make off her if she ever actually wins a Grand Slam. Sit with that for a second, because that one sentence contains the entire tension of this story. She is 21 years old. She has nearly 2 million followers online, a number that nearly doubled after a single stunning upset over a former world number one at a tournament last year. She already has sponsorship deals stacking up. Telecom companies, banks, sportswear beyond just Nike, a luxury hotel campaign spanning an entire continent. Some financial projections have suggested her future endorsement value could stretch into 8 figures. She is, in blunt commercial terms, already operating far above what her ranking alone would predict, and everybody with a calculator in a Nike boardroom knows it. So why the plain shirt? Because a signature logo takes time. Because a full cultural rollout takes planning. Because sometimes the fastest way to test a market is to throw the cheapest possible product into it and watch what the sales numbers do. And the numbers did exactly what somebody upstairs was hoping for. They confirmed, in the most brutal and efficient way possible, that this is no longer a bet. This is a sure thing. Because right alongside that plain shirt, Nike also dropped her official US Open dress, a $140 royal blue piece with mesh paneling borrowed from basketball design language. And that item started moving fast too. 2 products, released almost simultaneously, both hemorrhaging inventory within hours. That is not an accident. That is a company quietly building a multi-product identity around someone they weren't fully ready for yet, in real time, in public, with fans documenting every sold-out size along the way. And this is where the story stops being about a shirt entirely. Because a celebrity gossip outlet, the kind of outlet that covers red carpets and breakups, not tennis inventory, picked up this exact story within a day. When an outlet like that starts reporting on which size sold out first on a sportswear website, you are no longer watching a retail event. You are watching a cultural one. Through every second of this, the 21-year-old at the center of the storm has stayed almost eerily grounded. After a tough loss a few days later in a different city, a match where she actually won the first set before her body simply ran out of gas after weeks of non-stop competition, she didn't reach for some rehearsed, brand-safe soundbite. She talked about needing a haircut. She mentioned her nails had grown out, and she hadn't had time to deal with it. She talked about wanting to see her friends again before the grind started back up. No manufactured drama. Just an honest, tired 21-year-old admitting she's human, in a season where she's already racked up nearly 40 wins against fewer than 20 losses. A season where her losses have come against nothing but elite, dangerous opponents, and her wins have come against absolutely everyone else, including 2 of the very players whose merchandise sat next to hers on that shelf. She does not duck matchups. She shows up, plays whoever is standing across the net, and lets the tennis speak for itself. So here is where we land, back at the question we opened with. Why did a shirt that almost nobody thinks is well designed disappear from the internet before most people finished breakfast? Because it was never really about the shirt. It was about what the shirt represented sitting on that shelf. For the first time, next to the names of the sport's biggest superstars, there was a name that belonged to an entire country that had waited generations for exactly this. People weren't buying fabric. They were buying proof. Proof that they were there, watching, believing, when the moment finally arrived. Somewhere at the US Open this year, in a stadium packed with cameras and history, Alex will walk out in that royal blue dress Nike built for her big stage. And somewhere in the crowd, almost guaranteed, someone will be wearing that plain black shirt with the silver flowers nobody agreed was beautiful. They will know it could have been better. They bought it anyway. Because in the end, the shirt was never the product. The feeling was the product, and that, it turns out, was never actually for sale. It was just finally, for the first time, available to wear. Available to wear.